Attention all veterans and aspiring business warriors. Get ready to charge into the world of entrepreneurship with our dynamic podcast, Vet to Vet. Join us as we bridge the generational gap, bringing you the best of both the Gulf War era and the Afghanistan War era. From the battlefields to the boardrooms, we'll share the frontline strategies, hard-earned wisdom, and insider tips to help you conquer the challenges of business ownership. Stay tuned for some straight talk, occasional humor, and valuable insights to navigate the trenches of entrepreneurship. Welcome to Vet, where the spirit of service meets the drive to success.
We're the Vet to Vet podcast, Forged in Service. I'm here with Tom, my other host, and today we got a guest with us. All right, folks, get ready to meet our next guest, a true Texas native who embodies the spirit and hard work and determination. Amir was born and raised in the Lone Star State, where he learned the value of hard work growing up on a farm. Not just a farm kid, Amir was an all-around athlete with a knack for unpredictability. I met Amir 4 years ago. It was actually the year I started my business solo, and it's like an immediate hit off. It's like, you know, the military aspect of it, just the drive and just that determination. I think you had just went into the reserves at that point, wasn't it?
National Guard, yeah.
Yeah. His journey in real estate began when he managed a team at a big bank's property tax division. But that wasn't enough for him. Seeking more purpose, Amir joined the Army, where he met his soulmate and the love of his wife, Joanna. They have two beautiful kids, a 4-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. So your military service is nothing short of distinguished. You earned 3 Army Commendation Medals.
Yes.
So I looked up what an Army Commendation Medal is, because in the Marine Corps we don't get Army Commendation Medals. So that's quite an achievement. Yeah. This is mid-grade medals there. So it was pretty good. You definitely forged the brotherhood there, the honorable service. You transitioned back to the civilian life, which I want to talk about here in a little bit. You dove headfirst into the world of real estate. That's a big endeavor, because a lot of people don't understand what that entails. Ever since I've known you, you've always wanted to give back to that military community, and that's, you know, something that Tom and I, that's why we started the podcast, is so we could, you know, be that voice to get out to the military on how to do what we do. We tend to not strive, but we tend to succeed better when we are setting things on our own terms. So, you know, it's something I've always admired, is that you give back to the veteran community. Even through your logo, you do it for your t-shirts, and we'll talk about that too. You're known for your forward-thinking marketing strategies. You leverage technology, video to stand out, and you've done an amazing job. You and I have kind of a similar background as far as where we went in real estate and that learning that we had there, and you've really taken some massive advantage of that. You over $20 million in homes sold in the first of your career. That's freaking amazing. Again, giving back to the veterans. And then one last quick note that I got from my source. A quick side note: if you ever get the chance to read Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, it offers a great perspective on what it means to be a good man, and a perspective that makes you appreciate someone like Amir even more. So tell us a little bit about your military career.
When I worked at this bank, doing like these property tax liens, it was so mundane for me. I hated doing it, but I learned quite a bit. And then I felt like there was just a different purpose that I needed to do, and I felt like this extreme sense of like patriotism at this random point in my life in my early 20s, and so that kind of like propelled me into like wanting to join the military. So when I joined the Army, I had so many high goals. I remember telling people I want to be like a Navy SEAL, you know, so many different things. I mean, all that changes like once you get in, you know, you kind of have that deer in the headlights thing when you get to basic training. But gosh, I think the military for me, it really just completely changed my life. It changed everything about like the way that I think, the way that I operate, even the way that I budget, finance. So many different aspects, like learning tools that I took from that. And, you know, despite everything that we did during our military time, I think it set me up for so much success outside of that.
What was your job?
So I did computers.
Okay.
Yeah, I did IT. Now, the thing with IT is you don't always need to do IT, because if the stuff is up and running, then you don't need to do anything. So I did a lot more training outside of IT, and when something would break, I would fix it with IT stuff. And so that's where I was able to do so many more different things outside of that world, which I truly, truly appreciated.
So you got out, went in the National Guard. What drove you to real estate?
When I got out, I was thinking, okay, well, what are we going to do? I knew I didn't want to do 20 years in the military, but I wanted to like start a business of my own. And I'd always been interested in real estate when I was doing the tax lien division at this bank in San Antonio. And the only reason why I got the knowledge of that was I was actually put in that position unbeknownst to me because somebody quit. They needed to fill it really quick. They put me in there, you know, blah, blah, blah. And
That's how it works.
Yeah. And so it had always interested me on how some of these real estate, the avenues of real estate that you can take. And so when I was talking to my wife, I was like, well, what if I just start doing real estate like full time? And she's like, you know, that's a very risky thing. And I honestly, I didn't know what to expect. So I ended up getting an IT job and then doing real estate on the side, or getting my license on the side as I was doing my IT job because I was so nervous about, you know, not knowing if I was going to make
Right.
it or whatever.
It's our biggest fear.
Yeah, it kind of held me back quite a bit, I would say. But real estate was something that has always been in my mind for years and years. Just you know, the different avenues of approach you can take to owning a home, selling a home, building wealth through it. And I just knew it was something that I didn't want to like put off to the back burner anymore.
Did you initially get started with Trek? Is that where, did you start in Texas with your real estate license?
Nope.
No?
So my next duty station, I was supposed to go to Hawaii. My wife and I were supposed to be
Same.
in Hawaii, yeah. And so, you know, my wife wanted to start more like a foundation someplace, and I kind of felt the same, and we came to that agreement. So when we were talking about where we were going to move, it was either, well, are we going to move back to where you're from, San Antonio, or should we move to a new spot? My wife is from Arizona, and so we were talking about that, and I like the aspect of being somewhere completely new, not having, you know, any type of help or anything, and just kind of starting from scratch. For some reason that like really intrigued me. I was like, you know what, let's move to Phoenix. I'm up for it. Let's do it. And so we got everything. We moved from Colorado. That was my last duty station, was at Fort Carson. Brought it over here to Phoenix. Didn't know what the hell to expect and started completely brand new.
You know,
Yeah.
that's something that I've noticed that a lot of us, not just men, but even veterans, we have no problem starting over anywhere. You know, I'm kind of similar where I'm from Virginia originally, and then, you know, moving across the country, you know, overseas more times than is worth counting. But then at the opportunity to come move to Phoenix, I'm like, well, I don't know shit about Phoenix, but let's go.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
And it's not intimidating, it's not daunting, it's just it's like a new book to read,
Yeah.
you know, a challenge to be tackled.
I think it's almost ingrained in our military DNA to do that. I mean, because we're sent random places throughout our career. Most of us, not everybody, but
Yeah.
most of us are sent random places through our career, and well, we just adapt and overcome. We just do it.
I was about to say the exact same thing. Adapt and overcome.
Right.
And sometimes you don't even think about that specific saying. It's just kind of engraved in you. So when you do it, it's just almost automatic, right? And we got here, and that's exactly what we did. We just adapted and overcame.
Yeah.
So we've talked about this before, but there's something unique about putting your back against the wall and then having no way other than just, I gotta figure this out. I gotta get this done, because when you have no fallback plan, you have no other, you know, place to go, we just always get the job done.
Go into survival mode and make it work.
Right.
I agree. It's amazing what we can accomplish, like when our backs are against the wall.
So you got out of the military, you went into real estate, and then you continued to give back to that military community. You never kind of really stepped away from it. I remember 2 years ago you launched your T-shirts
Oh yeah.
with your logo. What's it? It's Foxtrot.
House Foxtrot.
House Foxtrot. And you told me what that was. It has something to do with the Army.
Yeah. So, you know, if you're familiar with the phonetic alphabet, H stands for hotel, but we don't sell hotels. So the play on words was house. And then my last name is Farzaneh, which starts with an F. Nobody can say my last name properly for my entire life, right? And so the play on that was, instead of, or the phonetic alphabet for F was Foxtrot. And so, you know, we originally started with House Farzaneh, and because we knew people couldn't say that, and we were trying to also appeal to like military, having the play on words of House Foxtrot, it kind of married those together. So
Okay.
if you're a veteran or you're familiar anyway with phonetic alphabet, it kind of made sense to you. That's kind of where we put those together.
I guess that really kind of ties into some branding stuff. I've been on this branding kick here lately, and you've done a really good job branding your model. So what's your thought process when it comes to your branding?
So the branding, the personal branding, was something that when I looked into how we're appealing, right? Because obviously, when you do real estate, you're willing to help anybody, right? You want to help as many families as you can, provide information, but there's also, when you're doing a personal branding aspect, you want to make sure that you're targeting a certain audience because like certain specifics, right? And the reason why we drive towards military so much is because we've been in that position. We know so much about, for example, the VA loan.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I learned from some coaching that I did a few years ago was, when you're doing personal branding and you find such a specific target audience, right? So like if I were to ask you, who do you want to work with, men or women, right? And most people would say, oh, well, both, right? And not that that's maybe the wrong answer, but maybe there's a more in-depth answer where you can say, well, I want to appeal to women. Okay, well, if you want to appeal to women, what age group? And then you start kind of going down that rabbit hole of like being like uber specific about who you want to target. And the whole point of that is, for example, if I want to target single mothers who are in the age group of 21 to 38, for example, first-time home buyers, and you kind of continue that path, you'll start to notice that more people resonate with that specific thing versus just the single motherhood, right? So you'll have people that see that content and say, hey, you know what, I had a single mom. I know exactly what it's like, to have that struggle. I trust this guy. I want to work with this guy, right? And that's kind of the value that you're providing out to those people, where you're being so specific about a brand. So for example, for us, it's first-time VA home buyers. And you start to get people where, I grew up in a military family, so I know what it's like to, you have my father or my mother use the VA loan, and, you kind of niche that market down.
Yep.
But you'll end up getting everyone else around there as well.
Now, this has actually made you probably one of the best VA realtors in the Valley. Tom and I have worked with a few, but you're crushing it, and it's that the social media aspect of it. Your brand is on point on social media. Just the way you're out there, it really works.
One of the things we always like to say, there are riches in the niches. And I think as business owners especially, that's something that a lot of people don't really buy into. Like you said, they cast that big net and they would rather try to generalize everything, when really, if you look at who's hyper successful from the small level to the billion-dollar companies, it's always the ones that try to specialize, perfect the one thing.
You're exactly right.
You have worked towards the veteran community and guiding them, and we've had some great clients together. Let's talk about the community. How is it that we, as entrepreneurs, we can help that veteran community succeed?
So that was one thing that was actually a bit of a challenge to figure out how to do that. And one of the reasons why I continued the military service after active duty, I went to the National Guard, was I didn't need to go back into the Guard. I don't need the pay for it. It didn't benefit me at all. It was more so to make sure that, because I knew what I was doing on the real estate side, to be able to help out those people, active duty or veterans. It didn't matter, because the VA loan works the same both ways. But it was to be able to still be instilled in that community and have better opportunities to give back. And that was like a big focus for me, was making sure that I have that chance to do that. One of the things that we try to do is, and it's very hard to do now, is we have a partnership with Luke Air, or we did have a partnership with Luke Air Force Base. We still kind of do, but since I'm not in the National Guard anymore, I got to figure out a couple things.
Security.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
We had a partnership with Luke Air Force Base, which allowed us to go on post, promote ourselves, not just on the real estate side, but promote ourselves as an advocate and a teacher on the VA loan.
Okay.
And so one of the things that I found is there are so many veterans all over the place, not just here in Arizona, all over the place, that don't know what their benefits can be used for. They have no idea, whether they don't get the training while they're in, they don't get the explanation before they get out, or they just don't do the follow-up, because they, sometimes you don't know what you're looking for if you have no idea about it.
Right.
And so I think, as you were pointing out earlier, it's up to us to be the advocates and the leader in that space, to be able to find those communities of veterans, active duty, retired, whatever the case may be, and insert ourselves, not more so asking for permission. I kind of just insert myself, where I kind of go into a situation that's like, well, here I am. I'm just going to give you the info. Now you have it. Let's see what happens from there.
For anyone out there using a VA loan, please explain how it is that we as veterans using a VA loan are not limited to just one property or one VA loan.
Yeah, so your VA loan can be used multiple times. You can use it throughout your entire life. Your VA loan depends on eligibility. If this is your first time home that you're buying, you have full, complete eligibility of your VA loan. And let's say you buy a $400,000 home with that VA loan, you still have eligibility left, right? Each county has a different standard on limits of their VA eligibility. So for example, if you buy a $400,000 home and you have, for example, $350,000 left on your eligibility, you can turn around and use that VA loan a second time to buy another property and use that as your primary residence. There's so many different ways that you can go about it. I'll give you an example. So I met my wife in the military, so she also has her VA loan. I used my VA loan when we bought our first house, but that doesn't limit me. I still have eligibility to buy another house, and I can also have my wife use her VA loan, not once, but twice, to buy 2 more properties if we wanted to do that, right? So, and each time you get out of a home that you bought with using a VA loan, your eligibility replenishes itself. So it goes back to what it was, and you can reuse it again a second time, or third time, or fourth time.
That's
There's
awesome.
so many veterans out there that do not know that, and honestly, I didn't learn that until after I finished my real estate class.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I was on a deployment. At the time, I was working as a defense contractor with AFSOC, Air Force Special Operations. So a lot of the guys, they'd be like, hey, I'm going to go buy my first house. And then they leave, go on R&R for 3 months, come back. And then I'm like, hey, did you buy that house? And, this has probably been 10 years ago now. They're like, yeah, man, I bought a $500,000 house or $600,000 house in wherever. And I'm like, damn, man, like you've got that much eligibility? And they're like, yeah, we all do. At the time it was like 579,000 in like the middle of Texas or something. So they bought like a quasi mansion in Texas from like 10 years ago. And I'm like, damn, if there's that much eligibility, like if that's what I qualify for, I'm like, fuck that. I don't want to go buy one house. I'm going to buy 2 houses, And so I'm like, I'll just split it in half and do that. Because at the time, probably 1% of the 1% that knew that you could buy more than one. So I would challenge everybody to please reach out to someone like Amir who can walk you through those steps and at least give you options to understand like what fits your needs. Are we in a situation where we're better off like, hey, let's not use all of the eligibility. Let's get into one house, wait a year, and then let's get you a second house, and then you can, turn one into an investment property, rent it out, something. There are so many different ways that you can use that VA loan to your advantage, but you need to consult with an expert. Don't go into it blind. Make sure that you use a pro that can show you all the options and the full picture.
I think there's a lot of improvements that have been made over the years to the VA loan that allows veterans so much more range to be able to operate, whereas before, eligibility, was limited to a certain dollar amount. Now, the VA has changed that and said, well, look, I can't fault you. If you make $1 million a year and you want to buy a home using VA loan, why am I going to fault you for that and not give you your full eligibility?
Sure,
right.
So they changed that. So now, if you qualify, for example, and you make $1 million a year and you want to use your VA loan on $1 million home, you can use a VA loan as a jumbo on your $1 million home and take the advantage of the benefits of where you don't have to put the down payment, you don't have the PMI, right? And that's huge, right?
That's
Because
huge.
That gives you so much more range to be able to operate, instead of just having to stick to, well, God, I don't want to buy a $500,000 home. I want to buy a $700,000 home.
And I've even seen people build a house from scratch, so I know that there's even ways to do that.
There's so many different avenues of approach that you can use, and I think there's a lot of people in our industry and some great real estate agents, some that are so much better than me at so many things. But one thing I know that I will never be outbeat on is my knowledge of the VA loan. Absolutely, I can tell you 100%. And there are some people who may have way more veteran clients than I do, and that's okay. But I can tell you right now, when it comes to information, how to make sure the VA loan is used properly, how to make sure it's structured the right way to be able to take advantage, because it's not just qualifying for the loan and getting a house. There's a lot more nuance that goes into it, kind of behind the scenes stuff. I guarantee you.
Right. Use the right lender.
the right lender makes a huge difference as well.
Yeah.
Your lender also needs to know how the VA loan operates. I'll tell you a big thing that I think kind of woke people up was during COVID, where the market was going crazy, right? Interest rates were at 2.5%, 2.1%. Or so many veterans who wanted to use their VA loan got denied because there were agents on the other end who did not understand what the VA loan meant. And they were nervous about it, even though it's a guaranteed loan. Well, I don't know if I should accept a VA loan because you can back out of the contract if the appraisal comes in low. Not understanding that the same situation applies if you use an FHA loan. The VA amendmentary clause is what they called it. And it boggled my mind that so many people got their offers denied, that they weren't able to get a house because the mass majority of people in our industry were so unaware of how the VA loan works. They only knew about FHA and conventional loans. No idea that the VA loan is the most absolutely best loan product type that you can get, and they would deny all these people. So I think that kind of changed everything, because now I think more people are starting to realize, oh, well, you know what, that would be a better option to accept versus an FHA.
Right.
Type of.
You dove into real estate, buying, selling for clients. You also took your business in another direction where you actually are starting to do some of your own investment properties.
Yeah.
So how's that working?
A good thing and a bad thing. A couple years ago, when we started to do fix and flips, and we started to get into like the wholesaling industry and then the Airbnb industry, we kind of went into that a little bit blind, I would say. We didn't put enough effort into the knowledge that we needed to. We kind of went into it thinking that, well, we know this aspect of it, so it'll translate to this aspect, to the investing side, and that just wasn't the case.
Yeah.
When interest rates went from 3% to 5% in a matter of a week, everybody started panicking. Looking back now, 5%, you're like, oh, hell yeah. But back then, 2 years ago, that was completely different. And that really changed how we do our research going into this. And, we lost quite a bit. And I think a lot of people did, a lot of investors did during that time. We lost a ton of, and not investor money, of our own private, personal money. We lost so much of that, and it really pinched, right? And so we had to kind of take a step back from that. But I will say, on the positive side of that, our investments turned out really well. Our Airbnb turned out phenomenally well, despite the challenges of neighbors or stuff. I mean, we literally had a prostitution ring next door to our Airbnb. We had no idea about it, but we still maintain a 5-star review. I still maintain Airbnb Superhost throughout that entire time that we own that property. And then even on our fix and flips, we did such an amazing job. We sold it for a great price to a great family. We didn't sell it to an investor. And so we have so much more in-depth knowledge on how to do this stuff now. On the traditional real estate side has been so extremely busy. We've actually pulled back from the investment side, specifically because we have so many things going on with, our active clients, our veteran clients, our military clients. So we want to make sure that we're servicing them the best that we possibly can.
Whenever Tom and I are talking to people coaching and on entrepreneurship and getting into it, we always talk about how hard it is. Yeah. This is not an easy game at all. And there's a lot of successes. There's a lot of setbacks. I'll never say failure, but there are setbacks. Some will say failures. I don't believe in that. Nobody fails.
We don't fail.
As long as you're moving forward and you're working, you're not failing. Yeah. If you're a veteran coming out of the military, how hard is it to get into real estate?
Getting into real estate is the easiest thing in the world. It's easy. The hard part is what you do after you get your real estate license. And it's not even just real estate, it's just entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
The hard part happens after you set your goals and your boundaries and your licenses and all that stuff. The hard part starts after that. It's easy to go to school and get your license and pass the test. That was nothing. The hard part was starting a business where you don't have anything and you have no idea how to run a business. You don't know how to operate systems. You don't know how to have processes. You don't know about personal branding. I mean, there's so many different factors. I think people don't realize what entrepreneurship goes into. And yeah, you have a ton of setbacks, but that's where the real challenge is on how to press forward on that.
Yeah, I mean, you and I had a conversation not too long ago about my real estate career. I'm like, dude, this is hard. I had no idea. I've seen so many real estate agents. The brokerage I had joined, just like they're a powerhouse. Agents, which is where you came from. And actually it was you that kind of inspired me to go to that brokerage, just because I saw how, the mentality that was there it was very us. And I was like, I can do this. And man, it has been hard. Yeah. But, again, it's, for those that are getting into a business, you're not failing as long as you're working. Tom and I listened to this podcast not too long ago where, the host was like, if you do it long enough, you're going to succeed.
Right.
It's going to happen, but you got to be patient.
Yeah, you bring up a good point is with that brokerage, I think it set up a lot of people with the perfect mindset in order to succeed in this business, right? And putting in those necessary deposits, because there are going to be times where you're not going to see anything out of this business. Yeah. You're not going to see any type of pay. You're not going to see any type of traction. You're going to think, well, nobody's watching my shit. What's the point of this? Like, maybe I should.
Why am I going live today?
Yeah, and you start to second guess, like, did I make the right choice, right? But then you bring up the point of putting in those necessary deposits, and there's no possible way that if you continue to do the right things day in and day out, putting in the right deposits day in and day out, that you're going to have the wrong results, right? It doesn't work that way, no matter what, right? If you do something consistently for 30 days, for example, and you do that every single day, there's absolutely no way that anybody can come back to me and tell me I didn't progress not one iota in that whatever space it is. I don't believe it.
So Tom and I it seems like with the last three episodes we've talked about fitness. I'm now down below 200 pounds. You and I talked about that a couple of inspections ago. So you're doing a challenge. It was a do the work challenge. Mm-hmm. How did that go?
That went really well. Those challenges they're so hard, and shout out to Do the Work and Carla Araujo for that, because she is, to me, very inspirational as far as the way she treats her body, the way that she maintains her body throughout the years. And I think women in the physical workout space get a bad rap, and I think for Carla, the way that she's toned her body, the way that she did, or women think, well, I don't want to look like that. I don't want to get buff, and she's not buff. She's just toned. She's very defined.
Yeah.
And she has so much knowledge on how to do that she inserts it into us around her, which I truly appreciate. You cannot, ask for somebody better like that.
She throws it into her business too.
It is, and it's very challenging, right? And something about entrepreneurship that I think gets overlooked is the physical health side of that, right? If you're physically healthy, forget the business for a second. If you're physically healthy and you're doing the right things to, condition your body day in and day out, your mind's going to be mentally sharp to be able to handle whatever obstacles you have to overcome within the day, the month, the year, whatever. And then that translates to being better at home as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your mind is mentally better, your body's physically better, your partner physically sees it as well, right? There's a lot of different things that benefits that come with being physically active, and then that translates to your business, right? People like somebody who they know can be dependable and who can be consistent. Right? It takes a lot of hard work to build a body that you want. And when you walk into a meeting and people see that you have that body, it's not necessarily like, oh my God, I love his body. I think they see that as a sign of like, well, this guy is
he's disciplined.
He's disciplined.
Right.
If he can do that for himself, I know that he can represent me very well.
Right. So for all of you that are listening, I did not set that up. We did not talk about that in advance because Tom and I do talk about it a lot. And just to hear it come from you, not preempted or anything. It's just like that's exactly what we talk about all the time, and it's so true.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, because the eating, working out's great, but the diet it's rough, man. I mean, we love what we love when it comes to food, and something that we always talk. And I don't know if it's just me, but I've noticed that since I've started changing my diet habits, now I will eat bad every now and then because I don't see food as just fuel. I also see food as a way of bringing people together and a way of like joining, certain aspects, and I like that. But like I love sometimes a good In-N-Out burger, man. There's nothing that compares. But if you're doing the right diet, that's where the hardest part is the diet. Diet's like 90% of everything.
Yeah, can't outrun the fork.
No, and it is very, very difficult, and it's tough because you want to, you'll go out and you'll see your friends, eating the most best indulgence of food, and you're just like, gosh, I want that so bad, but you have to like kind of stick to your gun because you know what
stick to my hamburger patty.
Yeah, because you know what, where the end result's going to lead you, right? They may feel good in that instant of eating that food, but you're going to feel like shit because you have done so much work throughout that time, and then you break it for one drink of soda or one bite of like an enchilada or something, right? You break it for one thing, and then you feel like shit, and then this is not for me. Like it changes something.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, like for me at least, Carla's wisdom on that and her fortitude on, how she gave us these workout plans and these diet plans really came into it.
So can anybody do this, do the work challenge? Or do you have to be part of the brokerage?
I think that you can do it if you're not part of the brokerage, if you just go to dothework.com, but I don't know when those challenges happen. We kind of get informed of that on our end. I just don't know.
Well, let's give a shout out to AZ and Carla Araujo. Hook us up with that info, and let's get that on the podcast. We can link it in to you guys, so if you want to check out that challenge.
It really is an awesome challenge. I have not done it myself, but I watched the progress everybody makes, and it really is an awesome challenge. So, and it looks like it is truly a challenge.
It is. It very much is. I mean, so the 40-day and 40-night challenge, we did 2 workouts a day. Physical workout, cardio workout, whether it was an hour outside or 30 minutes inside on some type of machine. But then we also did 1 day of fasting, where we did an 18-hour fast, and then we did 1 day of juicing, a complete day of juicing. And you can, spread those out, right? In 40 days, I lost 21 pounds.
Wow.
In 40 days.
Nice.
I remember the first time I did keto. This is probably like 8 years ago. I remember going through that phase of like finally getting adjusted to the diet. And then after like 30 days, I'm like, yes, I get a cheat day. And then you cheat, and then it takes like a day or two because you're like, wow, that was a horrible decision. And then the next cheat day comes and you're like, I remember how that made me feel. Fuck it. All right, let's just cheat one more time. It only takes 1 or 2 times before you're like, hey, today's your cheat day. And you're like, fuck that cheat day. I'm not even worried about it. I don't want to.
Andy Frisella talks about something like that, where he talks about, have you ever heard of 75 Hard?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So
We're starting it on September 1st.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you'll know. When you start 75 Hard, right, so many people, after they complete it, they feel so invigorated that they did it, that they want to have a cheat day after that. And he talks about that as like, why? Like,
Right.
You're ruining your entire progress. It doesn't mean you have to completely never, ever have that day, but when you're specifically looking forward to the day that you can completely break it, right, you're not fully
You haven't broken it.
taking advantage of what that program is offering you and what the discipline that you've built going through that time, right? It's okay to have an indulgence here and there, and that applies for whatever, but it's when you overindulge in it, or when you're specifically, just reaching that goal to do it, sometimes it kind of clouds your judgment a little bit, and then you start to do, if I can do it 1 day, I'm not going to gain any weight off of it, well, I'll do it another day. And if you do 2 days, well, I've only had 2 days of cheat meals. I've done like 75 days of perfect training. I'm not going to gain any weight. Wrong. Right?
Yeah.
That's when your mind starts to get back into that old habit, and you start to put yourself in that position of like, now you're gaining the weight back, and you're like, oh shit, it's been a month later, and I gained all this weight back. How the hell this happened?
And then the more you do that, the quicker it comes back. You get that yo-yo effect. I used to see guys do this on deployments all the time. They'd lose 20 pounds, go home, come back 30 pounds. Then they'd lose 30 pounds, they'd go home, come back next time 40 pounds.
I'm guilty of that. I did that yo-yo thing where when we first started these challenges, I lost 20 pounds again, and then gained it right back. And then I lost 10 and then gained 15, and then I would just go up and down.
Yeah.
And
that's even worse for you than just staying fat.
Yeah.
it kind of hurts your business too, because there are days where you feel so extremely tired because you've done the right or the wrong things on your diet and eating and your exercise, that you're like, I don't want to wake up for the gym today. But that's where the perseverance comes in.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Pushing yourself beyond that limit to where that if you don't work out, what the results are going to be, or if you don't market yourself in your business, what the results are going to be.
The way you treat yourself and the discipline that you have for your body will absolutely transition to how you run your business.
Yeah, it's a very, very key point, because you know what? Maybe I can go 1 or 2 days without posting on my social media. Maybe I could, but why would I?
Right.
Because I know what the result is when I consistently post, right? And it's not about I need to obtain as many clients as I can. I've transitioned completely away from wanting to get as many clients as I possibly can. I don't want to do transactions anymore. You're not a transaction. You're making the biggest financial decision of your life. I want you to have information. I want to provide a need and a value to you. Whether you use me or not, I don't care.
More of a consultant.
I
Right.
truly don't care, because if you have somebody in your life that you truly trust, and maybe they just don't know the information, but you get it from me, great. Make the right decision for yourself. If you want to go into buying a home. So for me, I know, for example, maybe I don't need to post every single day on my social media, right? But I know the value that it gets when I do post that information. I know the value that people see in it because they understand this guy knows what's going on in the market. He knows what's going on with the rates. He knows what the builders are offering. He knows what the VA loan is doing, right? The more information I can provide to people, my business will take care of itself on that end. I'm not worried about, oh gosh, I need to get a client. But the second that I stop posting, I stop doing those things for 1 or 2 days, my business starts to go down, and then you start to see a turn in that, right? So it's about the consistency, putting in the necessary deposits, and doing the benign work that people really don't see the behind the scenes of, right? It's so easy to see that we post every day and just click through those stories, but it's harder to understand what it takes for us to be able to, should I drive all the time posting these things?
Yeah.
It's dangerous as hell.
Right.
But I still do because I have an idea, I know what I need to say, and I want to get it out, right?
You have a lot of driving videos.
Yeah, it's kind of become like where where I get the best information out of. I can sit down and record a video on my own, but sometimes it sounds too scripted. When I do a video as I'm driving, completely unfiltered, I make mistakes as I talk, but it's so much more informational, at least in my opinion.
I found when I'm driving, I need to have my notebook out, because I'll just, you're just driving in traffic in Phoenix, and then you're like, oh yeah, I need to write it down, or I need to put it somewhere. Otherwise it's just gone.
90% of mine and Tom's collaboration happens when he's driving. He's like, hey, I had an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen you post your TikTok videos of your inspections.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's phenomenal, right? You're providing people information that they would never have known. And you know what? Common mistake is when we go into a new build, people don't know that they can get an outside inspector, like a third-party inspector like yourself, to do a new build. They think because it's a new build home, everything is fine. Absolutely wrong. Did we not have an inspection the other day where the trusses inside of the roof were cracked, right? There's no way that my client or myself would have known that, because the builder's not going to tell us that, right? And you
Hell, the builder didn't know it.
Yeah, exactly. And you providing that information by posting it, right? It just gives people the understanding of, you know what, I have all this knowledge to be able to go into this so confidently that when I go to buy a house, I know that, Amir's going to take care of me on this end, Joe's going to take care of me on this end, Tom's going to take care of me on this end, right? I have, that confidence that they have this, team built to be able to do that. And that all comes on the back of providing information.
What really pisses me off is that there are agents that are actively telling their clients they don't need an inspection.
Are they really?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I go to 1-year warranties all the time where I'm like, man, I don't recognize this person. Don't get me wrong, we work with a shit ton of people on a yearly basis, but I'm usually pretty good
now this year.
Yeah, I'm usually pretty good of, if somebody books a warranty inspection, I'm like, oh, this house looks familiar, this name sounds familiar. Or if last but not least, when I'm knocking on their door, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember you. But when somebody I've never seen before, how did you guys hear about us? And, oh, well, one of my neighbors, or somebody told us about you, and we didn't get an inspection because our realtor didn't recommend one. They said, just wait till your 1 year.
Wait till your 1-year warranty.
Wow.
We get that all the time.
I bet. Oh,
It was a 1-year warranty.
It's a 1-year warranty.
Yeah.
That's strange.
Yeah.
That's weird.
That still happens today.
I would never. I always tell people never recommend.
They're actually one of the groups that use us a lot. They still, to this day, as much as I have told them, don't do that, they still let their clients know that you can go 1-year warranty inspection. You don't have to do it right now. I'm not sure what the purpose behind it is, or the reasoning behind it, because there's so much that's missed. I went on one a year and a half ago. Their agent had told them, you don't need one.
Yeah.
And when I went in there to do the inspection, they're like, yeah, we have this weird mold smell. We've had it for the past year. The air conditioner's been looked at 3 or 4 times. The AC company said they're going to start charging us to come out because they can't figure it out. And I was like, all right. So I get up in the attic. I'm looking at the AC unit. Could not figure it out. I mean, everything was fine. There was no moisture. Turn around to go get out of the attic. And when I looked, one of the vents for the plumbing was discontinued in the attic. It was a sewage vent.
Yeah.
So they had sewage gases venting into the attic for a year. Another one, it was actually a home out in the West Valley, one of the higher end homes. When I went in there, do my typical speech, anything's been going on for the last year. He goes, yeah, our AC won't shut off. The thermostat's broken. We cannot figure it out. So I tested the thermostat. It worked just fine. I got up in the attic, and as soon as I lifted the hatch, I was like, oh, here's the problem. No insulation for a year. The client almost didn't let me finish my presentation before he drove down to the office to start yelling at people.
Yeah, and I think that's where the disservice comes, where you have so many people in this industry. And it makes us look bad.
Oh yeah,
as professionals, right, in this space, because I think there are so many people that are so worried about trying to get the immediate gratification of, oh, I have a client, cool. You're like, let me start counting counting the money out.
Close the deal. Just close the deal.
Just close the deal. And they have,
Especially on a new build because it takes so long.
yeah, and new builds are so easy on a lot of aspects, right? So
Oh, yeah.
it takes a lot of the burden off of them. And I feel like they go into this business and they go into this space just looking at it as a transaction, looking at you and you as just another number in the cog of their business effect, right? And it's such a disservice, because then you have people where, exactly like you said, like, how does this happen? Right? Why did my realtor tell me this stuff? And then it gives us a bad name and a bad impression.
Mm-hmm.
Because then now when that person wants to go, let's say they outgrow that home and they want to go get something else, imagine the next person that they come in contact with on the real estate side and some of the stuff that they're going to have to deal with because of the trauma that they got from this past real estate.
The massive lack of trust.
I would much rather realtors like that just get out of the industry altogether. You know, there's too many good people like you out here that if you're somebody that is transactional, or you're not going that extra mile to actually take care of somebody and do the right thing, just get the fuck out of here.
And I think it comes from learning too, because, you know, I will say early on, I was very transactional because that's kind of, I didn't know any.
Well, when you go into real estate, that's what you're taught. It's very transactional.
Yeah, and I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
It was until you put yourself in the room with different people and you understood, you know, where the value lies and the significance of what it means to, you know, not necessarily use a vehicle, but just to get into a home.
Mm-hmm.
The significance of getting into one of the most expensive financial decisions of your life. The feeling, right, that you can never ever duplicate of when you get the keys to your house, right? And I always tell people this, like, sometimes the most unfiltered, best feeling is when you have the video camera rolling and the joy that it brings of when they're, you know, opening the door or whatever, right? Sometimes I don't even like to record it because I want them to enjoy the moment. Having that feeling, right, it's such a nostalgic feeling, and my business would be completely shit if I thought about it as just transactional. I thought it would be just a number, right? So I completely changed my mindset. Now I am solely informational based, right? And my business will take care of itself. If you trust my information and you have a good feeling about, you know, what the information and the value that I'm providing you, you're going to want to work with me, right? And vice versa, right? There are some people that I cannot work with. There are clients out there that we don't mesh well together, and that's okay. But as long as you have the right information, you have all the information to make the best decision possible, it'll be a piece of cake.
Well, we could go on for another hour for sure, but we don't have that much time. And I know you probably had to work, and I know you've got an inspection. Oh, wait, no, you don't. You got another meeting. You got networking after this. Networking, listeners, do networking.
Marketing and networking. That's your first job as a business owner and entrepreneur.
Yes.
Whatever you do outside of that, as a real estate agent, as an inspector, that's the easiest part. That's job number 2. Job number 1, market and network.
I'm a big follower of Patrick Lencioni. He has a podcast. It's called The Table Group. It's pretty good. If you get the chance, watch it or listen to an episode. But he does an unpaid advertisement, and so I just bought a truck. I went to Lifted Trucks and bought a truck. Is that where you bought yours?
Yes.
And I'm gonna tell you, it was just an amazing experience. So easy. So I do want to do an unpaid advertisement for them, for Lifted Truck. So I told them I'd wear it on the podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really, really great. I mean, I've bought several vehicles, but man, they just made it so simple. And Hannah was a sales agent. She was great. It's on East Bell Road in Phoenix. So there's my unpaid advertisement.
Perfect.
I will say one last thing before we end is, if you're a veteran or anybody who wants to get in, a veteran especially, if you're anybody who wants to get into the entrepreneurial space, understand the aspect of what it's going to take to get you to be successful to where you are, right? You're standing in the middle. Imagine on this end, you make a video, the video bombs, nobody watches it, right? And then you start to think, oh, this is not going to work out for me, right? And then you start to go down a rabbit hole, and I'm going to get a little extreme really quick. You make a video, doesn't work, nobody watches you, your business fails, your wife decides to leave you, your kids decide to hate you, you become homeless, you end up getting on drugs, and then you die in the streets, right? It's very extreme, right? And all because you catastrophize one thing in your business because you didn't get the immediate result. Versus the complete other side is, if you just take one step in the other direction, okay, this video didn't work, I'm going to make another one. I'm just going to slightly improve it and see if this one works. Oh, okay, now I'm going to make a slight improvement of this one. And then you continue that step on the other side, and now your business is flourishing. People are reaching out to you. you know, you have a great relationship with your wife, you have a bigger house with your kids, they admire you even more, you know, you have a lifted truck, you know,
Yes.
and then you can start to really flourish, right? So you have two completely end of the spectrum where people are stuck in that middle and not knowing which way to go. And I would say just take one step more in the other direction into the life that you really truly want to get, and I promise you it's going to pay off. You cannot do the wrong things every single day and get the wrong results. You cannot. It is really, really impossible to do, or you really have to just really screw everything up in order for that to happen, but it's not, right? So if that's something that you really want to do and you want to, you know, put yourself and your family in a great position, just think about that. Think about, you know, taking that one step in the other direction versus catastrophizing it to the
I love that.
far right.
So,
Well said.
if anyone wants to get a hold of you, how do they do it?
So you can reach out to me on Instagram. It's where I do every single one of my postings, all of my stories, all of my information. My Instagram is Amir_AZ_realtor1. And I'll give it to you as well. So you can
Yeah, we'll put it in the comments.
Yeah, and if you want to know more about your VA loan, please just visit our website at housefoxtrotco.com. housefoxtrotco.com. We just need a little bit of information from you, and we'll get a hold of you, and we'll go over all the options that you have and how you can best utilize your VA loan.
I do recommend it. Any veterans that are listening to this that are interested in using your VA certificate, absolutely reach out to Amir. I guarantee you will not be dissatisfied.
Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks for having
Tom, take us
coming
home.
on, man. Yeah. So, again, Vet to Vet podcast. Amir, Joe, Tom, guys, this is what we do. All right. This is our way of trying to help you. We are literally reaching out to the 1% of the 1% of people that go into military service. So we're already in a small group, and then those of us that reach out into the business space, even smaller. So we're here for you. Okay. Please like, comment, share this with your friends. We're trying to spread a message, okay? If you have questions, please email, DM, smoke signal. I don't freaking care. Send us your questions. We'll feature them on the podcast and hopefully try to help more entrepreneurs and veterans.
And I'll try and get you the address for that Airbnb for Amir.
Oh. I appreciate you guys for having me. Thank you so much.
All right.
It's
Thank you.
great to be on this podcast.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, Amir.